So this is our last meeting for new ideas in this building. We're going to be going over to Tropical. It's very humbling to me because this is the first meeting that I ever picked up a white chip at. When I came into this room, I didn't know anything about AA. I was in clinical rehab, was being shuttled here in a van, and I didn't know anything about what was going on. I picked up my first white chip here. Also that week was the first time I ever went to Edna, and I got to hear our speaker speak. He was chairing the meeting there. And it was my first experience of actually that feeling of leaving the meeting and being on fire. Like, I felt it. I felt what this guy was saying. I could relate to what he was saying. It was very powerful. I've seen him in and out of the rooms around here. I've seen him conjugate at the rooms around here. Excuse me. Forgive me. I'm very happy to bring you Luke.
Hey everybody, my name is Luke Higgins. I'm an alcoholic. I'm glad I didn't know any of that. All right. So I'm going to roll right into this. So my sobriety date is February 11th. My sponsor, I have a great sponsor. His name's J.E. I have a bunch of guys that call me sponsor, and I'm so privileged and blessed for that. My home group is the Fourth Dimension group. That's the data. We are closing this place down, huh? So let's close this sucker down tonight. And moving on to bigger and better pastures. So good for this meeting. I like this meeting. It's not my home group, but I come here as much as I can. All right, so why do we have to do the 12 steps? Like, I'll go to a lot of meetings, okay? I might even, I'll do coffee on a certain day or so. I'll clean up. But why do I got to do those steps? Anything but that. And that was really, in a way, my motto for all the 4 years that I relapsed over 20 times. So finally I got a sponsor and did the steps, and I bought a big book. I didn't even know there was one all those years. It shows you where I was. Anyway, I want to get delayed. So I was about 2 years sober, and I went to the New Jersey convention that they had, and there's lots of meetings at the same time. And I went to go into one. It was a really crowded one. I'm looking at, of course, I think it's probably something like how to successfully 13-step or something like that. That's why there were so many people at it, but I couldn't get in. So gosh, I'll go over to this other one, and it was an archives workshop. And this guy blew my mind when he did his presentation, and it was entitled the Links in the Chain. And he talks about some of the key points in AA and AA history that are just too cool. They cannot be a coincidence when you weave all of this fabric through. So I'm just going to jump right into it. And it starts before there even is AA. Let's set the tone. Ooh. Right? We're in the early 1930s. Okay? There isn't AA. There really aren't any rehabs anywhere. There aren't even detoxes. Maybe some hospitals had a little drying out wing or something like that. It was practically an epidemic, this alcoholism, So that's the world that we're going to start in. And Bill Wilson called this story the first link in the chain. And it's in our big book, but it's so bland in our big book, or I didn't understand it when I read it. So if you're on page 27, if you want to go there, and I'm just going to talk it through, but I'm just going to tell you where it starts. I'll start on page 26, it starts. And it's a certain American businessman. All right, that story that's going to be the next 3 pages is the first link in the chain. So I'm going to talk it rather than read it. So what we're talking about here is a guy named Roland Hazard. Roland Hazard was from Vermont. He had a family well-to-do. The Hazards were well-to-do. One of them was a senator, his father or so. His grandfather started a big manufacturing plant, and they were very rich, very successful. They made all the blankets for the North in the Civil War. Maybe not a popular thing to say here, but in Florida. But I'll tell you another thing he did. Grandpa Hazard was one of the first people to ever have profit sharing for a company, and this is way back when. So he was, but we're talking about Roland Hazard now. Roland was an embarrassment to the family. He was a drinker and a drinker and a drinker. And again, the family being prominent and affluent and the senator and all of this, they just kept shipping him out. Go on vacation, go here, go there. And it was kind of, and that's what they did. He might have been called geographics, but it was really more like, get away from us, please, you're killing us. And so one of these, though, when he finally had it, in 1931, Roland, long before AA now, Roland Hazard goes to Switzerland. All right, and in those days, and this is Luke imagination as well. Come on, you gotta like get on the Titanic too, right? It takes like 2 weeks to get over to Switzerland or whatever it is, and he spends a year with a psychiatrist, Carl Jung. It's Carl Jung, but I'm just gonna say Jung because I don't like saying Jung all day long. So it's important that it was him. All right, sure, he had the money, and he got Carl Jung as his psychiatrist that he's working with for a year. But we are lucky. There's 3 great psychiatrists in the world at the time. Sigmund Freud, Carl Jung, and some guy named Adler. Kind of like the 3 tenors. You never know that third one. So Adler. Right? So we're lucky that he got Carl Jung, because Carl Jung believed in the possibility of some sort of spiritual world. Freud didn't. Adler didn't. If he'd have gone to them, who knows what would have happened. But Jung is who he got, and he's in Switzerland. And Jung works with him for a year, in Roland, what it says in here. And we worked in so that I found the inner springs in my mind that relapse would be impossible. And he worked with him so great, and Roland was so happy for a whole damn year. He worked with the best psychiatrist. And he leaves him, and he goes back, and he doesn't even get past France before he's drunk. He can't even get on the boat. All right, so there's a little Luke in here now. He's pissed. So he goes back to Carl Jung, and he's like, what the hell, man? I spent a lot of money with you, and I've been here for a damn long time, and I can't even get past Switzerland. I can't get past France. And Carl Jung, maybe they caught him in a bad day. He goes, you want to know the truth, dude? I'm going to tell you. I hate working with alcoholics like you. If it was up to me, I wouldn't even have taken you. But, of course, he took his money. But he goes, it was up to you, I wouldn't even have taken you. That's one line in it. I've never been successful with alcoholics like you. Now, I know what I want to do. I'm trying that I work with you, like I do a lot of people, and this is successful, but not with alcoholics of your type. I want you to try to get new ideas and emotions and attitudes. A huge emotional displacement has to happen, and rearrangement has to happen. That's what I want to get done. But I don't know how to do it with alcoholics. I got to tell you, I wouldn't have taken you. I've never been successful with alcoholics. But I know what I want to do. Carl Jung, Roland Hazard goes, so I'm totally effed? There's nothing that can happen? Well, we're lucky, because one of the things Carl Jung did is he read this book from the forefather of psychiatry, this guy William James, his name's in a book. We're not going to get into him, but he wrote a book called Variety of Religious Experiences. This book is drier than dirt, or at least to me. I tried to read it. But what it suggests in this book of psychiatry is that, listen, every once in a while, people, not just alcoholics, people with bad afflictions and things going on and unbelievable calamities in their life who feel so hopeless and helpless and have no alternative, they're at the end. They have found somehow some stirring spiritual experiences that have helped them to overcome that. Because I don't know the phenomena on how it happens. I don't know. But that's what is in the book on variety of religious experiences. Well, Carl Jung happened to have read that. So now he's telling Roland Hazard, he goes, look, I don't know how to help you, but you try to find some stirring spiritual experience, because I've read that once in a while can happen. You know, maybe you just find lightning in a bottle, dude. What can I tell you? So Roland leaves. No, he says one thing. He goes, I'll go back to church. And he goes, no. We're talking bigger than that. Like it's got to be a stirring experience. Church is great, but this is different. It's got to be. So all right. So he leaves. Lucky for us, he goes. Roland Hazard, who's from Vermont, doesn't go back to Vermont. He goes to New York, and he goes to the Calvary Mission. The Calvary Mission in New York. It's a lot of Oxford group stuff is going on there, and Sam Shoemaker is in charge of it. Sam Shoemaker is this this great gregarious clergyman who kind of was always at the biggest parties, always did interviews on radio and stuff like that, and he was the man. He was very charismatic. So Oxford Group was starting to carry around, right? So one little side note now. Earlier, Sam Shoemaker was at a conference in Denver, right? And in Denver conference, on the way back, he's in a railroad train car. And in this railroad train car is, you heard of the name Firestone? There was Roy Firestone, Goodyear Tires and all that crap, right? So Roy Firestone's son was a real druggy and alky named Bud. And Buzz was the nickname. And Buzz is probably an appropriate nickname. Well, Buzz Firestone was on this same railroad trip coming back. And he went to this religious conference in Denver, but that didn't help him. But Sam Shoemaker got him alone in a railroad car on a long ride back from Denver. And little Buzz got lit up. And he was on fire. And Buzz changed. And he didn't drink for a while. And he changed his whole demeanor to a degree, right? And Roy Firestone was so enthralled that something helped him. He went to Sam Shoemaker and he said, your Oxford Group stuff is working. That's great. He goes, I want you, bring out all your best Oxford Group people, like 15 of you, and come to Akron, Ohio. This is where he's from. Little Akron, Ohio. and relative to the world, right? And Oxford Group comes with like 15 people for 2 weeks. He puts them up at the Mayflower Hotel. All right, and they teach a whole bunch of Akronites about the Oxford Group. Well, who's in that group for the 2 weeks? This lady named Henrietta Seibling, and then her friend Ann Smith, and then Ann Smith's husband, Dr. Bob Smith. They're in this early 30s, before there's AA. They're in this Oxford thing because of Firestone, because of Sam Shoemaker, right? So leaving Akron alone for a while, but now you know that. So now we come back to New York. Roland is there. He's with Sam Shoemaker for a little while. He gets it together. He's sober 2 or 3 months. He's doing great, maybe in 4 or 5. And he goes back to Vermont to vacation. He's from Rhode Island, but he got a summer house in Vermont. So, and he takes 2 Oxford Groups with him, right? 2 guys with him. So they're in Vermont, they're in the pool, whatever, and they hear in town, one of the Oxford guys' uncle is a judge. And he says, hey, there's a New Yorker who's ready to get put away to jail for all of his drunken shenanigans. Say, oh, let's check this out. They go to the court, and it's Ebby Thatcher is ready to go to jail. Ebby Thatcher was a rich New Yorker who summered up in Vermont, and he drove his car through someone's house, and he did a whole bunch of other things, and the police and everything just wanted him to get the hell out of town. They're ready to put him in jail. So the Oxford guys go to the judge, and they say, listen, what if we take him? Judge goes, as long as you get him the hell out of my town, I don't care what you do. So Roland and these 2 guys took Ebby Thatcher with them, instead of going to jail, back to New York, back to the Calvary Mission. Now he's working with the Oxford Group people. The Oxford Group people don't only work with alcoholics, they just wanted to help people in general, usually a little more affluent people. They sometimes said help for the up and out was a phrase they used. But at any rate, they're still helping a lot of people. They have all these spiritual principles. And so Ebby now is sober about 2 months, right? But we're going to stop right there. Because while Carl Jung is in Switzerland, a great psychiatrist trying to help alcoholics, saying, I don't know how to do it. We're going to freeze flame the wave, the frame, everything is wavy. Meanwhile, back in New York. So again, the early 1930s in New York, about the same time, Jung's doing his thing, we have a hospital in New York called Towns Hospital. In Towns Hospital is a doctor called Dr. William D. Silkworth. The D is for Duncan, in case there's a trivia question. Okay? So William D. Silkworth, he was a doctor on his own right, great doctor. He lost all his money in the stock market crash, and he went to work for Towns Hospital, and he went to work in the alcoholic wing. They say by the end of his time, he worked on 40,000 different patients in his time period. All right, his nickname was the little doctor who loved drunks. He had white hair and blue eyes, and a short little stout guy, and so he was trying to help as many people as he can. Now, in our big book in Roman numerals, XXVII, all right, I'll read you the paragraph to Dr. Silkworth, as you may know, wrote a letter in our book. It's the Roman numerals, and he's endorsing our book, as it turns out, but this is earlier on. Listen to this paragraph in the middle, and I'll read it, and then we'll decipher it. We doctors, meaning him, have realized for a long time that some form of moral psychology, that's the words he used, was of urgent importance to alcoholics, but its application presented difficulty beyond our conception. Well, our ultra-modern standards, our scientific approach were not well equipped to apply the powers of good outside of our synthetic knowledge. It's a lot of big words. But here's what Silkworth says, and it sounds a hell of a lot what Jung was saying. He goes, I know what I want to do for these alcoholics. I know what I want to do, but I don't know how to do it. They need some form of, his phrase was moral psychology. Moral psychology sounds a hell of a lot like ideas, emotions, and attitudes, or huge emotional displacement and rearrangement. They don't know each other. They're on different continents around the same time. They're not alcoholics. They're men of science, men of psychiatry, men of medicine, great ones at the time, the best director in America, and young. And they are trying, when they work with alcoholics, they know what to do, but they don't know how to do it. They know the finish line. They don't have the path to the finish line. Okay. So now that's Silky going over there. Carl Jung's over there. The world's happening. Roland goes. They bring back Ebby. Ebby's sober 2 months. Well, he's supposed to help people because that's what you do. Ebby remembers his friend from childhood time, and his friend happens to be a guy named Bill Wilson. So he goes and visits Bill, and he says, I found religion, and oof, Bill doesn't like that. You know what I mean? Luckily, later on he says, why don't you choose your own conception of God? That softened Bill a little bit. But Bill Wilson, coincidentally, had been in and out of Silkworth Hospital 2 times already. So even after Ebby comes and tells him the ideas of the Oxford group and what he should do, Bill drinks again, and Bill goes back to Silkworth Hospital another time. So now Ebby visits him in Silkworth Hospital, right? And he kind of says a little more open to say, so what's that stuff again? And there he says there's 6 tenets on page 263, if you ever wanted to know what the Oxford group talked to you about. On page 263 in that story are the 6 tenets of the Oxford group. So this is what they used to teach. Besides the 4 absolutes, they used to say these are the 6 things that you had to do. They're there, you can read them, and basically from these 6, ultimately you'll see become our 12. All right, so Bill Wilson, while he's lying in a hospital and Ebby visits him, they're not sure who, but somebody dropped off a book, and this book happens to be Variety of Religious Experiences, that dry book. Bill happens to read it too, where, hey, something can happen if you get hit with lightning. Bill has a white light experience. Bill comes out. Now, Bill's trying to stay sober. He's working with Oxford Group people, but he's annoying them because all Bill Wilson wants to do is help drunks. But the Oxford Group people, they try to help across the board. And he's like, no, drunks. And I'm like, what's with you and these drunks? We're going over here today. But at any rate, Bill started working with Dr. Silkworth, not working with him, talking to alcoholics in Silkworth's Hospital. First of all, thank God Silkworth let him do it, right? I mean, he's a guy 2 months sober, and he's like, hey, let me talk to all your patients. Crazy, right? But Silkworth let him, and Bill's annoyed because it's been 2-3 months talking to these people, and no one's getting sober. And he complains to his wife, damn, it's been 3 months. I've been talking to these people all the time. No one's getting sober. And his wife said, yeah, but look, Bill, you are. You're sober now 3 months. That's the longest you've ever had in a long time, ever. So he's like, yeah. So now another month or 2 goes by, and Bill's still frustrated with it, though. And Silkworth hears him. And he says, you know what? He's frustrated. No one's getting sober. And Silkworth goes, well, I can tell you why. I've been listening to you, but I'm running my job. But I've been listening to you. This is the phrase Silkworth said to Bill Wilson. You got the cart before the horse. The hell's that mean, right? Because I'm listening to you. You're talking, you're meeting these people, and right away you're talking all about this spiritual experience you had, and how God get you a lightning bolt, and oh my God, and this and that. What do you got to do? Find God, and you're not getting them to feel like they're hopeless and helpless. You got to dwell on the hopelessness of our condition, that they will, and that they got no other resource, and their ego deflation at death. So that if you get them to be totally deflated, understanding how bad their problem is, they might be willing to hear your spiritual solution that you come with. That's what you got to do. You got it backwards. A week later, Bill Wilson happens to go to Akron, Ohio on a business deal. 1 week after that talk. Timing, coincidence, luck, or not. So he goes to Akron, Ohio. The business deal goes lousy. He's ready to drink. He goes to the hotel, Mayflower Hotel, mind you, and he uses the phone, and he looks in through a series of calls. He ends up with a lady named Henrietta Seibling, and he says, I'm a rum hound from New York, and I need to look and work with another alcoholic. Well, Henrietta knows her good friend Ann Smith's husband, Dr. Bob. He's been coming to these Oxford group meetings drunk. So it's like, yeah, I got a doozy for you. As a matter of fact, they couldn't even meet that day because Dr. Bob was already wasted. So they came the next day. All right. So Bill and Bob said to his wife, give me 15 minutes with this guy. And he went into a private room, and they came out like 6 hours and 15 minutes later. And Bob came out and said, this is a man who speaks my language. He knows what he's talking about. Wow, we got it now. So Bill and Bob, and then they get number 3, and I'm not going to go through them all. So we're growing and we're going, right? But after 1937, check this out how slow this happened. I can't believe we're here, man. A year and a half later, they were successful with 7 others. Think about that number. Holy shit, 10 people in a year and a half. And by the mid of 37, there were 40 sober people. And that's when they said, this is great. There's 40 of us, because there was 0 for so long. And like some of us got over a year and a half or 2. So he said, if we just do this like telephone game, we're going to screw it up. So we need to do something. And they ultimately decided to write a book. And so Bill Wilson went about writing the book. But he had to check in with Akron people, because that was the main force, and then he had to check in with his New York people. He so often said, he goes, I felt more like a referee than an author. Because the Akron people wanted Heavenly God, Father on your knees, and the New York people wanted more of a psychiatry kind of a book. And so he kind of played the middle ground on both. And so he tells a story where he had written the first couple of chapters and got everyone to agree with it. He's an umpire, but he got it to go. And now he figured, I got to really spell out the whole program, what the whole program's about. So he went back to the 6 tenets and stuff, and he tired, and he lay down, and he wanted to get rid of the wiggle room. He knows our AA members, we look for that, the way to get out. So he took 6, and when he kind of changed it around, it came up with 12. And that ends up being our 12 steps. And the 12 steps give us a spiritual awakening. Now, maybe I don't like that phrase, spiritual awakening. There's some people that could be a little bristling. I love that they put an experience too in the back of the book. Some of my favorite definitions as well. If you don't like spiritual awakening, how about a personality change sufficient enough to recover from alcoholism? And one more, we undergo a profound alteration in our reaction to life. Man, sign me up for that. Life's coming. How am I reacting to it? Right? So, choose what you want. Psychic change, moral psychology, ideas, emotions, and attitudes, huge emotional displacement or rearrangement, spiritual awakening, personality change, missed one, profound alteration in our reaction to life. Choose what works for you. What blew my mind now is I'm seeing like, whoa, the Young and Silkworth, they knew the answer. They didn't know how to get there. The 12 steps are the path that leads to the place that they wanted everyone to get. These men of science, way before there was AA. It got to be more than coincidence. See, the steps are not the treasure. They're the treasure map. They bring us to the treasure, which is the good relationship with God and the awakening that we need. So, go back to Carl Jung as I wrap up, as I descend. Carl Jung is known, he might even have coined this phrase, if not he used it a hell of a lot. Synchronicity. I only knew that name from the name of an album for the Police. For some of you, an album is where music used to be on vinyl. But I digress. Carl Jung uses this phrase, synchronicity, and the exact definition, but it's this. It's vast forces that are unexplainable that actually have a connection that can't be directly connected, leading to some sort of a destination of force of nature or something or other that's unexplainable. And when you think about all of this stuff that was going on, how did Roland Hazard, of all people, go back to where? Not Rhode Island, to the Calvary Mission. And then he happens to go with 3 people on vacation, and his vacation is the same town where Ebby Thatcher happens to be. Ebby Thatcher's come back and reaches out to his old friend Bill Wilson, right? Bill Wilson, just before, he's not getting anyone sober, but right before he leaves, Silkworth gives him a new formula to do it. He goes out with Dr. Bob, of all people. He called 10 people and ultimately got Henrietta Seibling. So it's like the last nickel, supposedly. Maybe we're exaggerating, but whatever. And then all of a sudden that force happens, right? How does all this happen to be said? I'm going to even get into the whole Sam Shoemaker. Oh yeah, let's go back to that trip with Bud. That's why, how did Oxford become so big in Akron, Ohio? You know, so like these are all little small coincidences that could be totally nothing to do with each other, or not. It could be way deeper than I can understand. I don't know. It's up for us to take our own choice on what we think this is or was or not. But here's what my last takeaway is. Now I know why I need to do the steps. It makes it really clear for me. Those 12 steps get me to the spiritual awakening, which is what I need, which is what these great men, before there was AA, were trying to do with so many people and didn't know how to do it. And then we come along and we get AA and we get 12 steps, and I don't think the world's ever been the same, and I know I haven't. Thank you. Oh, that's good. I was getting comfortable.
Good job.